good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Sedgwick County Board of County Commission meeting. I want to specifically welcome those that are online, joining us on Facebook and YouTube, those joining us here in person as well. We're glad that you're here today. If you take a peek when you walked in, if you're looking at the order of business today, you could have walked in and picked up a meeting agenda packet. We obviously encourage you to do so. Follow along with the meeting. If you're interested in any of the supporting documentation that we as commissioners look at as we're making decisions on these items, you can always access that at sedgwickcounty.org. Lots of good reading material there. Got a good meeting planned today, but before we start today, I would like to wish happy birthday to our colleague down here at the end, Jeff BLUBAUGH. Happy birthday, sir. Yeah, oh yeah, he's crossed the bridge into senior citizen style, right? Yeah. Cheap breakfast, senior services. Yeah, senior services, and that's here, so we can get you signed up. Happy birthday, Jeff. Yeah, hope you have a great day, my friend. Okay, let's get to work. Madam Clerk, I'll officially call the meeting to order for Wednesday, March 26, 2025. First item, please.
Invocation to be observed by a moment of silence. Please remain standing for the flag salute.
Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, very good. Madam Clerk, next item.
Roll call. Commissioner BLUBAUGH.
Present.
Commissioner Wise.
Present.
Commissioner Howell.
Present.
Commissioner Meitzner.
Present.
Chairman Beatty.
Present. Next item.
County announcements.
Good morning, Nicole.
Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. Nicole Gibbs of Strategic Communications. Every spring in Kansas, farmers and ranchers conduct controlled burns to eliminate weeds, reduce the risk of wildfires sparked by lightning, and put nutrients back into the soil. But smoke from these prescribed burns can also threaten our air quality. That's why starting next Tuesday, a burn ban imposed by the state of Kansas will be in effect for Sedgwick County during the month of April. Open burning without a permit, including trash fires, will not be allowed. Only controlled burns in agricultural settings are permitted during April. To learn more, visit our website, sedgwickcounty.org/fire. Recently, the Sedgwick County Health Department hosted a no-cost measles vaccination clinic to protect residents from an outbreak of measles in other parts of Kansas and the country. Again, right now there are no reported cases of measles in Sedgwick County. Director of the Health Department, Adria Byrne, is here with more information on it and how you can keep your family safe.
Okay, good morning, Adrian.
Good morning, Commissioners and Board of Health. This is not deja vu. It kind of feels like it, but this isn't novel, and so it's not going to be the same thing. It's dangerous, not going to be the same thing. So there are no measles in Sedgwick County. On the 21st of March, Kansas Department of Health and Environment did put out a HAN release, which is a health alert network, that there were 10 cases of measles in Kansas. We started with 1. In about 2 days, we were up to 10. And those cases are in Grant, Morton, and Stevens County. All of those cases are in children from 0 to 17 years of age, and 9 of those were unvaccinated, and 1 was vaccinated, which means they just had 1 dose out of 2. So in the United States, as of the 21st, we have 378 confirmed cases. Texas and New Mexico have the most cases at this time. I believe Oklahoma has 8, and again, we have 10, and those counties are very close to the Oklahoma border. Of those cases, 75% are under 19, 95% were unvaccinated, and 3% were under-vaccinated. Again, just 1 dose, and they needed 2, and then 2% were vaccinated. So what is measles? It's a highly contagious respiratory illness. It can cause life-threatening illness. About 1 in 5 unvaccinated children will end up in the hospital, and people in general. 1 out of every 20 children with measles will get pneumonia, which is the most common side effect and cause of death from measles in young children. Transmission is direct contact with infectious droplets by airborne spread, and part of what makes makes this so dangerous is that oftentimes viruses, we cough, we sneeze, they go into the air, they fall. And then we touch something, we touch our eyes, nose, and then it goes in. And it can be that way too with measles, but it stays in the air for 2 hours. So if someone went somewhere and we knew they had measles, our investigation would be in a 2-hour period for anyone that was in that area. So it lingers in the air. So what are the symptoms? The first symptoms start 7 to 14 days after exposure to someone with measles, high fever, cough, runny nose, red, watery eyes. 2 to 3 days after symptoms start, some people get spots in the mouth, but not all do. 3 to 5 days after the primary symptoms start, then a rash begins at the hairline and moves its way on down. It could appear other places on the body first, but typically it's hairline on down. And the rash appears on light skin. The rash is red, but on darker skin, it may be a little bit harder to see, but still has those bumps and rash. So vaccination, this gets kind of complex, but it is on our website and on CDC and Kansas Department of Health and Environment. But the childhood vaccine schedule is that all children between 12 and 15 months get their first dose, and then the second dose happens between 4 and 6 years of age. If a child is exposed, because parents are worried, my child's 9 months or 10 months, they're too young. If a child happened to be exposed or we're in a state where there were a lot of cases, then that baby could be vaccinated at 6 months of age. If someone is vaccinated before 6 months of age, they still have to catch up. They still have to get the first one at 12 or the second 12 to 15, and then it would be the third one between 4 and 6 years of age. Anyone between 7 and 19 years old that either has not received both of the vaccinations or at all needs to have both vaccinations. Someone can get between 7 and 19 that hasn't been vaccinated. They can be vaccinated with the first dose and then 28 days later with the second dose. The first dose is about 93% effective, so it's a highly effective vaccine. The second one puts people up to about 97%. Now, for people that were born before 1957 are considered immune because measles is highly contagious. There was no vaccine, so people were either believed to have had the measles or had been exposed. So those of us born between 57 and 1967 that didn't have the measles, I had the measles, so I was told, can get another dose of vaccine because the vaccine wasn't as effective during that period of time. And so after 67, if someone even had one dose, they are considered immune. Pregnant women cannot get the MMR vaccine, but if they are exposed, they can get immune globulin, which increases their immune system response to the measles. So what are we doing at Sedgwick County Health Department since we know it's in the country and in our surrounding borders? We started planning about 3 or plus weeks ago when we knew it was in Oklahoma and that it was coming because measles, it is highly contagious, and since COVID, even more people have skepticism about vaccine. The measles vaccine has been successful and around for over 60 years. It's very safe. So we began collecting or updating our information on the measles and vetted it through our health officer, Dr. Mins, and then we sent it to the Medical Society of Sedgwick County because most physicians or all have not dealt with measles, and so it was important to provide them with information. And then a couple weeks ago, we began holding meetings with our health and medical partners in Sedgwick County just to keep them apprised of the situation and what we were doing in Sedgwick County to prepare. And then our first measles vaccine clinic was last Saturday. We had more adults that were unvaccinated that came in to be vaccinated than we had children, but we did have children, and we had a couple families whose children, for whatever reason, had not been vaccinated and got their first vaccinations, which made it all the more worth it. So, and there were about 45 people that came in during that time. And then on the 5th, we happened to already have scheduled Twice a year, we have a community baby shower that Healthy Babies puts on for our pregnant moms and new moms. We have a lot of resources, and for anyone that goes through Safe Sleep class while they're there can get a pack and play while they're available. So we thought, well, here we have an opportunity at East 19th Street at our health department there, right across from KU School of Medicine, when we have the moms and babies and others coming in. But this just isn't for people going to the baby shower. Anyone in that neighborhood or anyone in the county can come in and be vaccinated if they fall into one of those categories and would like to be vaccinated. So we'll be, again, at 1900 East 9th Street, walk-ins and children 12 months and older at this time. Since we don't have measles in Sedgwick County, there's no importance or need for anyone, any babies under 12 months of age at this time to be vaccinated. Bring identification, vaccination records, and insurance information if they have insurance. That is it. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Very good. Looks like you've done a lot of work in preparation. Adrian, we really appreciate that. Commissioners, any questions? The 3 counties in Kansas, can you say those again?
Those 3 counties were
Grant,
Harper, Grant, and where'd I go?
Was it Stevens County?
Harper, Grant, and Stevens.
Okay.
All very close to the Oklahoma border.
Yes, very good.
West.
Okay. Very good. Okay, Commissioners, any questions?
And I enjoy seeing you, but I hope I'm not up here for a little bit again to talk about measles.
Very good. Adrian, thank you again for coming by with this information.
Really appreciate the update, ma'am. Okay. Next up, Environmental Resources is hosting a free tire collection event on April 12th. Environmental Resources is hosting a free tire collection event April 10th through the 12th from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the West Yard, which is located at 4701 South West Street. This is for residents only. New this year, tires will not be accepted from businesses. Each load is limited to 50 tires. And as we wrap up March, it's also Women's History Month, and several Sedgwick County leaders are reflecting on their careers in public service and the role models who inspired them. They shared their stories in this video.
Women's History Month gives us an opportunity to really celebrate and recognize the rich tapestry of women in history.
I have lots of female role models, from my grandma who worked in accounting before, really women had a leadership role in accounting.
In my current generation, I've never known it any different. But I look at my mom's generation and my grandmother's generation and understand that I'm here because of what they fought for.
My mom was always really involved in not only family, but work and church and passion projects. I think what that taught me is the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. I'm here to make a difference, and that my leadership can really be valuable to others and to my community.
I've always been one of few women engineers, and in fact, I feel like it's a good thing because I'm well remembered. I was the first female president of our state engineering professional society.
I graduated high school at 16, so when I entered the workforce, I was much younger than other people I was working with. Really, the sky's the limit. And I say go for it, even if there's not another woman you can look for that's gone before you.
Women hold a unique skill set, and I think that it's a really great balance to have both men and women working together, seeing things a little bit differently, having different ideas and ways to attack a problem or solve an issue. That's what builds strong teams. It's what builds strong communities, strong churches, and strong families.
That is all I have for today, so I'll stand for any questions.
What a great video. I appreciate the work that you guys did in putting that together, and really impressive women working throughout Sedgwick County. Commissioners, any questions or comments? Okay, good video. Okay, thanks, Nicole. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Public agenda.
Okay, we do have 3 people signed up for public agenda. Some of these might be for, we do have a zoning case, and typically on a zoning case, which is item on into our first item of our new business, we typically allow you to speak during that time. Is anybody that signed up for public comment wanting to speak now instead of waiting for the zoning case? If you could just raise your hand, that would give me an indication. Okay. So my assumption is everybody, the three people that signed up here, we're just going to wait until the zoning case and allow you to speak at that point in time. We'll call you at that point in time. Okay, Madam Clerk, next item.
Consideration of minutes, item A, regular meeting minutes of March 5th, 2025.
Okay, Commissioners, it looks like both of these meetings, all Commissioners were present. So without any objection, I'll just combine these two into one motion. Okay, I move to approve the regular meeting minutes of March 5th and March 12th, 2025.
Second.
A motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner BLUBAUGH.
Aye.
Commissioner Wise.
Aye.
Commissioner Howell.
Aye.
Commissioner Meitzner.
Aye.
Chairman Beatty.
Aye. Next item, please.
Appointments, item C, resolution appointing Edward MURABITO to the Metropolitan Area Building Construction Department, Board of Code and Standards and Appeals, and the architect position.
Very good. Deputy County Councilor Kirk Sponsel.
Thank you, Chairman. Kirk Sponsel, Deputy County Councilor. Item C involves a resolution appointing Edward MURABITO to the MABCD Board of Code Standards and Appeals in the position of the architect as selected by the Board of County Commissioners. The recommended action is to adopt the resolution.
Okay, very good. A lot of work being done at MABCD, a very important position. So I'm happy to move to approve the resolution appointing Edward MURABITO to the Metropolitan Area Building and Construction Department, Board of Code Standards and Appeals in the architect position. Motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner BLUBAUGH.
Aye.
Commissioner Wise.
Aye.
Commissioner Howell.
Aye.
Commissioner Meitzner. Chairman Beatty.
Aye. Is Edward here today? There he is right there, yes. Okay, our county clerk is here. He's happy to swear you in.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning,
All
County.
right, please raise your right hand. I do solemnly swear I will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Kansas, and faithfully discharge the duties of the Office of Metropolitan Area Building and Construction Department, Board of Code Standards and Appeals. So help me God. I do. Congratulations. If you'd like to stay, thank you.
Good morning, Edward. You're welcome to say something if you'd like.
Not really.
Okay, I feel like that some days too. Hey, we thank you for serving this position, sir. We very much appreciate it. Okay, Madam Clerk, next item.
Item D, resolution reappointing Joanne Kilgore to the Sedgwick County Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities Advisory Board.
Okay, Commissioner Meitzner.
And if I may, Chairman, if it's okay with you, if we could take up items D, E, F, G, and H together, as they're all associated with the same advisory board.
D, E, F, and G, correct? Is that what you said? D through G?
Yes, through H. Apologies.
Okay, D through H. Okay.
And with those items, the actions proposed would be to reappoint Joanna Kilgore as recommended by Commissioner Meitzner, appoint Constance Foster, also as recommended by Commissioner Meitzner, reappoint Dr. Renee Patrick as recommended by Commissioner Wise, appoint Christiana Pranian as recommended by Chairman Beatty, and reappoint Stacy Rogers as recommended by Commissioner Howell, all to the Sedgwick County Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities Advisory Board. The recommended action would be to adopt those 5 resolutions.
Okay, looking at items D through H. Commissioner Meitzner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd be glad to make the motion to approve all these. I just want to give a special shout out to Joanna Kilgore and especially to Connie Foster, who I had a nice visit with, and they both agreed to serve. And so out of respect to the others that also have a nominee, I just wanted to make a special shout out to those 2.
Yeah, I'd like to do the same. Item G with Ms. Pranian. This board, the Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities Advisory Board, is a significant board here in Sedgwick County for a lot of reasons. There's a lot of discussion happening in this space, a lot of actions coming from the state, obviously this wait list and the capacity to perform more services, and we've got to build the bandwidth here in Sedgwick County to help best serve these individuals. It's also a conversation we're having, a significant conversation about the gaps between mental health and those with IDD, these dual diagnosed individuals, and how do we best serve this population. It's a topic of conversation we're having frequently here at the county. So we're really encouraged by some of the work going to be done on this board and the people that are serving. We're grateful in their willingness and their expertise they're bringing and the compassion they're bringing to this board. So I just want to make sure that everyone knows that I'm very deeply grateful for those serving in this capacity. So, Commissioner Meitzner, would you like to make a motion?
Okay, I make a motion that we approve the appointments as indicated in items D, E, F, G, and H.
Good. I'll second that motion. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Blubaugh.
Aye.
Commissioner Wise.
Aye.
Commissioner Howell.
Aye.
Commissioner Meitzner.
Aye.
Chairman Beatty.
Aye. And if you're here today with this board assignment, items D, E, F, G, and H, County Clerk is here, is happy to swear you in.
Yep, very good. All right, please raise your right hand. I do solemnly swear I will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Kansas, and faithfully discharge the duties of the office of Sedgwick County Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities Advisory Board, so help me God.
I do.
Very good.
Please, yeah.
I'd just like to thank everyone for allowing me to have this opportunity again. I really have learned a lot from being on the board, and it's a passion for me to kind of help my community, especially in this capacity. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm grateful.
Connie, I just wanted to thanks for our visit again, and I think we found out in a history that you worked years ago with my wife Susie in the grade school area, and so she says hi and she watches these sometimes. So shout out from her to hello to you as well.
So cool.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you again for your willingness to serve. We're grateful. Okay, Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Item I, resolution reappointing Kim Landers to the Sedgwick County Advisory Council on Aging and Physical Disabilities.
Mr. Sponsor, sir.
Thank you, Chairman. As indicated, this item would be to reappoint Kim Landers to the Sedgwick County Advisory Council on Aging and Physical Disabilities, and this is recommended by Commissioner Blubaugh. The recommended action is to adopt the resolution.
Okay, Commissioner Blubaugh.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I'd like to take the action, or like to move forward with resolution reappointing Kim Landers to the board to the Sedgwick County Advisory Council on Aging and Physical Disabilities.
Very good. And I'll second that motion. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Blubaugh.
Aye.
Commissioner Wise.
Aye.
Commissioner Howell.
Aye.
Commissioner Meitzner.
Aye.
Chairman Beatty.
Aye. And is Kim here? Okay, we'll have the clerk's office will get a hold of Kim and have her come in and sign all the paperwork. So, okay, Madam Clerk, next item.
Item J, resolution appointing Doug Hyde to the Wichita-Sedgwick County Metropolitan Area Planning Commission.
Okay, Mr. Sponsor.
Thank you, Chairman. This action would be to appoint Doug Hyde to the Wichita-Sedgwick County MAPD as recommended by Commissioner Blubaugh. The recommended action is to adopt the resolution.
Okay, Commissioner Blubaugh.
Thank you very much, and I'd like to go ahead and make the motion to appoint Doug Hyde to the Wichita-Sedgwick County Metropolitan Area Planning Commission.
And I'll gladly second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Blubaugh.
Aye.
Commissioner Wise.
Aye.
Commissioner Howell.
Aye.
Commissioner Meitzner.
Aye.
Chairman Beatty.
Aye. And the legend is here to receive it himself. Okay, well, you do have two, so why don't we go ahead and wrap up the second?
One and the other.
One and then the other. Okay, do your deal.
Yep. Okay.
That's why we got the clerk here.
Please raise your right hand. I do solemnly swear I will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Kansas, and faithfully discharge the duties of the office of Wichita-Sedgwick County Metropolitan Area Planning Commission. So help me God. I will. Congratulations. All right. If you want to say anything on this, you can go ahead.
Very good. And why don't we, if it's okay with you, we'll go ahead and move forward, and then we'll ask for comments later. Okay, Madam Clerk, next item.
Item K, resolution appointing Doug Hyde to the Sedgwick County Nuisance Appeals Board.
Okay, Mr. Sponsor.
Thank you, Chairman. This proposed action would be to appoint Doug Hyde also to the Sedgwick County Nuisance Appeals Board as recommended by Commissioner Blubaugh. The recommended action is to adopt the resolution.
Commissioner Blubaugh.
And thank you very much. We'll go ahead and make the motion to the resolution appointing Doug Hyde to the Sedgwick County Nuisance Appeals Board as recommended.
Okay, I'll second the motion. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Blubaugh.
Aye.
Commissioner Wise.
Aye.
Commissioner Howell.
Aye.
Commissioner Meitzner.
Aye.
Chairman Beatty.
Aye.
All right. And again, please raise your right hand. I do solemnly swear I will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Kansas, and faithfully discharge the duties of the office of Wichita-Sedgwick County Metropolitan Area Planning Commission. And I'll gladly second.
Commissioner Blubaugh.
All right. And again, please raise your right hand. I do solemnly swear I will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Kansas, and faithfully discharge the duties of the office of Sedgwick County Nuisance Appeals Board, so help me God.
I do.
All right.
Very good.
Very good.
Yeah.
You'd like to state?
Thank you, Commissioner BLUBAUGH, for the appointment. I look forward to serving Sedgwick County, and so far it's been a wonderful time.
Very good.
Thank you so much for accepting these appointments. I appreciate you representing us. I do want to do a shout out to Josh Blick that served on this board for several years, and Josh done a lot in the community. I want to thank him for his service, but appreciate you stepping up and helping us move forward, Doug. Thank you.
Yeah, Doug, thanks, bud. You do a lot for this community, and rumor has it you guys have a baby grandson or granddaughter coming today. So you made a stop here to get sworn in. We're grateful for that. Bless you guys. Okay, moving forward. Madam Clerk, next item.
Item L, resolution reappointing Cameron Moren to the Wichita Sedgwick County Food and Farm Council in an at-large position.
Okay, Mr. Sponsel.
Thank you, Chairman. And I would propose, if it's okay with you, to take up items L and M together as they're for the same council. Item L would be reappointing Cameron Moren, and then item M would be reappointing David Paul, both to the Wichita Sedgwick County Food and Farm Council in the at-large positions. The recommended action would be to adopt the two resolutions.
Okay, no qualms for me to combine these two. Commissioners, any questions or comments on that? Okay, seeing none, I move to approve and adopt the resolutions reappointing Cameron Moren and David Paul to the at-large positions of the Wichita Sedgwick County Food and Farm Council.
Second.
A motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner BLUBAUGH.
Aye.
Commissioner Wise.
Aye.
Commissioner Howell.
Aye.
Commissioner Meitzner.
Aye.
Chairman Beatty.
Aye. And Kelly Arnold is here.
All right. Please raise your right hand. I do solemnly swear I will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Kansas, and faithfully discharge the duties of the office of Wichita Sedgwick County Food and Farm Council, so help me God. I do. Congratulations. If you'd like to state anything, you can.
Thank you for this opportunity.
Perfect.
Well, thank you. This is a board that's actually a combined board between Wichita and Sedgwick County, the Food and Farm Council. And I met with my rep just a couple weeks ago. We had a wonderful conversation about the discussions they're having about food insecurities and how do we get more from farm to table here in this community. It's fascinating work being done there, so I'm excited to get an update. So thank you again for your willingness to serve. Okay, that wraps up all of these appointments and reappointments. For those that weren't here but got appointed or reappointed to a board, the clerk's office will reach out and have you come in and sign the paperwork, and we'll get you moving forward. Okay? Madam Clerk, next item, please.
New business, item N, CON 2024-00270, conditional use request in the county to permit a private airstrip on property zoned RR Rural Residential District, generally located on the south side of West 39th Street South and on the east of South 391st Street West.
Okay, Scott Weddle, welcome.
Good morning. Okay. So, Scott Wadle from the Planning Department. So for this application, as you've heard, the applicant is requesting a conditional use in order to allow for an airstrip to operate on the site. This item is being heard today because the recommendations for approval are different. Now, I'll get to that in just a moment. So in terms of the request, the applicants have indicated they would like to develop the subject site as a residential subdivision with a private airstrip in the middle. In terms of the property, the site is generally located at the southeast corner of the intersection of 391st Street and 39th Street. The site is located across the street from the city limits of Cheney, which are shown here on the aerial by that pink dashed line, so Cheney is directly across the street, across 39th Street to the north. The subject site consists of 2 ownership parcels, and you can see those outlined in yellow. It's nearly 80 acres in size in total. It's zoned rural residential and currently is developed with a house. The majority of the subject site is in agricultural use. The applicants have submitted for the subject site to be platted into 9 lots. That plat was approved by the MAPCD Planning Commission in November of 2024. The plat includes the location of the proposed runway. It would generally align from the north to the south, angling slightly from the northeast to the southwest. In terms of context, properties on the east, south, and west of the subject site are zoned rural residential and developed with a mixture of large lot single-family dwellings or utilized as agricultural fields. So here's a map that shows the zoning. And the area in white is in the city of Cheney, so that's not reflected on our map, but I've got a quick description of that. So the properties to the north are within the city limits of Cheney. They have the following zoning classifications, and again, they may not sound familiar because simply that's Cheney's zoning classifications. One property is zoned R4, residential, and is developed with a single-family dwelling. One property is AG, agricultural, and C2, planned commercial. It's in use as agricultural fields. Another property is C2, which is planned commercial and in use as agricultural fields and a cemetery. In terms of the staff report provides additional information about the airstrip alignment, the FAA approval that's been granted, and a review of community plans and whether or not this is consistent. In terms of review, on January 27th, the Cheney Planning Commission considered the case. That Planning Commission recommended approval with the conditions that are listed in the staff report, and the vote on that was 9-0, so it was unanimous. No members of the public spoke in opposition, but there were 3 members of the public who were there to ask general questions regarding the presence of existing power lines, the possible height restrictions on adjacent property, and on-site fuel storage. Those questions were answered at the meeting, and those answers are included in the staff report. I can go over them, but I just want you to know they're in detail in that dialogue. On February 3rd, the Citizens Advisory Board for District 3 considered the application. The CAB recommended approval of the request by 11-0, so it was a unanimous vote there. And they did that subject to the conditions that the Cheney Planning Commission recommended, but in addition, the CAB recommends an additional condition that would prohibit the airstrip from being lit, so it could not be used at night in that case. 2 members of the public were at that meeting and spoke with general questions regarding lighting, construction of hangars, and on-site fuel storage. Again, those questions were answered at the meeting, and those answers are included in the staff report. On February 13th, the MAPC considered the application. The MAPC recommended approval by a vote of 14-0, so it was unanimous there too. And they recommended it subject to the same conditions as the CAB. So the CAB and the MAPC have the same conditions. The city of Cheney just has very similar, but is just missing the thing about the lighting, prohibiting lighting. No members of the public spoke in opposition to the agenda item at that MAPC meeting. And finally, no protests were received for the case. The Board of County Commissioners may approve the conditional use request per the MAPC recommendation with a simple majority of 3 of 5 votes. So in terms of recommended action, that is the recommended action to adopt the findings of the Planning Commission and of the MAPC, I should clarify, and approve the conditional use request, authorize the chairman to sign the resolution, and authorize the resolution to be published. That would require 3 of 5 votes. There are a number of alternatives. As always, you can override the MAPC recommendation and approve the application subject to the conditions recommended by the City of Cheney's Planning Commission. That would require a 2/3 majority vote or 4 out of 5 votes. You can override the MAPC recommendation and deny the application. That, again, would require 2/3 or 4 out of 5 votes. Or, as always, you can return the case to the MAPC for further consideration, and we would recommend that you would include a statement specifying the basis for the failure to approve or deny. That would require a simple majority. But, again, the recommendation coming to you is to adopt the findings of the MAPC and approve the conditional use.
Okay.
Oh, and I'm so sorry. I'll take you through the graphics real quick. I almost forgot. So here's the map of the zoning. Here's the map from the comprehensive plan showing the urban growth area. So it's in Cheney's urban growth area. Here's the map from the zoning showing from the zoning code showing the rural growth. No, the zoning areas of influence. Here we go. This is it. Here's the map from the notification area and the protest. Again, no protest, but just to show where we notified folks. This is a map showing the alignment of the proposed runway and how it aligns with other properties and uses. Here's the plat that was approved by the MAPC. And here are photos from the subject site and the surrounding area. So I'll just go through those real quick. Okay, sorry about that. Thank you.
That was good, man. Appreciate it. Scott, thank you. Before we get into some questions and some comments, I want to give the option declaring some ex parte communication from the commission. So, commissioners, can you just declare publicly if you've had any ex parte communication?
I have not.
I have not had any ex parte communication.
Yep, I likely have not had any ex parte communication. I remain open-minded, excited to hear the details of the case.
I have not either. Obviously, I was at my CAB meeting and was able to listen to the case at that point, open-minded today.
And I've had no ex parte communication. Thank you.
Okay, Scott, after your presentation, let's pause for a second. Commissioners, do we have any questions or comments at this point in time for Scott or MAPD staff? Okay, seeing none, why don't you hang tight for a second? This is going to be a good time. Is there an applicant agent here, Scott? Do we know? Okay, yes. Yeah, good time to hear from applicant's agent. Good morning, sir. If you just give your name, that would be helpful for the record.
Sure. Yep. Nicely done, Mr. Weedle. Appreciate it. Happy birthday, Mr. BLUBAUGH. And thank you for your time. Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for your time. I know you don't normally meet this time of the month, and I hope it wasn't just on our account. I hope that's not a strike against us, but we do appreciate your time. My name's Jeff Grace. So as you can see on the map there, there's a lot. There's about 10 acres on the southeast end of that lot, and that's where we're currently building our home. So I'm in Cheney, Kansas. I've been a pilot for 32 years. About the last 26 has been at the airlines. And so I'm excited to present today, to present this to you and take any questions you may have. We think it's going to be a great addition to the air capital community. There's about 17 other private airports in the county, and there's no available lots. They sell out quick. Yoder's just added a second edition, if you're familiar with the Yoder Air Park. All those lots have sold out. Anytime a home or a lot does come up for sale, it typically sells off market. So we think there's a real need, a real desire for these. And just to reiterate what Scott had said, so we got the FAA approval. We got unanimous approval from the City of Cheney, from the CAB, from the Metro Area Planning Commission. And I would just like to, and Ms. Wise could help with this also, I would just like to drill down. We're going to ask that you adopt the City of Cheney's resolution. And the big distinction was, as Scott said, it came down to the lighting. So initially, we want to be neighborly. We know that the longevity of the air park and the harmony there is going to be based on us being neighborly. You can see there's a few residences adjacent to the plat there. So initially the thought was, well, just no lighting whatsoever, no nighttime operations. And that was kind of a tactical error on my part because I didn't consider during the winter solstice, we've got sunset at 5 p.m. Most of the people that live around us, commute, work in Wichita, most of the people aren't even home. So we're asking that you would adopt the City of Cheney's resolution that didn't include that restriction. The FAA, in their report, they found lighting to be acceptable, just as it is at Yoder Air Park. Yoder Air Park also has lights. So what we would do is we would work with the neighbors and self-impose a curfew, if you would. I don't know if it'd be 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, but we'd like to work with the neighbors if the lighting approval is granted. Now, right now, we don't have any plans for lighting, but in the future, as the neighborhood, as the lots sell, as the HOA has the funds, it's something we'd like to be able to explore. So at the CAB meeting, the lighting issue came up. This was before we considered, early sunset in the winter. So the lighting issue came up, and again, I spoke at that time. I said, well, we have no desire, no plans for lighting, and again, we didn't take into account the early sunset during the winter. So I was asked at the CAB meeting how we were going to prevent self-impose a lighting restriction, if you will. So my answer was we're going to put it in the HOA covenants. And there was a board member there in the CAB that said he's been a member of an HOA for years. And what he's found is sometimes an HOA can run away, get a 2/3 majority of vote or whatever their bylaws are, and they can override HOAs, which is something I've never considered. I've never been part of an HOA. So Mr. Longwell at that point, and Ms. Wise, you can help here. I think Mr. Longwell at that point wanted to add the lighting restriction, I think, to help us, to secure us, so we weren't just relying on the covenants, if that makes sense. I don't think the CAB necessarily had an issue or a concern with lighting at the airport, if that's your recollection. So of all the boards that have looked at this, MAPC, you here today, we think that the city of Cheney, being the closest, would be the ones that would most likely be affected by any nighttime operations, and they didn't consider adding that restriction at all. So we would just ask that you consider that resolution.
Jeff, thank you so much, sir. Appreciate that. Do you have any questions for the applicant? Commissioner BLUBAUGH.
Thank you, Chairman. Jeff, I just want to ask you, being a pilot all those years, safety concerns with not ever being able to put a light out there. Could you kind of walk us through that a little bit?
Safety concerns without lighting?
With never having the opportunity to put a light out there.
Well, so that would restrict us to daytime operations only.
So Lake Watana, I know that was originally laid out with the airstrip first, and it really did a lot to grow that development. Is there any kind of lighting or anything out at Lake Watana, or is that daytime only?
I'm unfamiliar with Lake Watana. I believe the only one that I know of presently in the county is Yoder. Now, there may be more, but that's the only one. I'm not sure about Lake Watana.
Okay. Well, what is the latest you can land without lighting?
So in our proposal, it would basically be the latest would be sunset, and the earliest takeoff would be sunrise.
Okay. Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Other questions, Commissioner Meitzner?
So just refresh so I can learn. So lighting, would it be on 24 hours, or just as approaches are happening? Do you turn
just
them on
typically.
and off?
So what normally happens at uncontrolled airports or private airports, or even airports with part-time towers, there is lighting at the airport, and there's systems where you can activate those lights on the radio frequency you use for the airport for traffic reporting. So you click your mic transmit button a number of times, that turns on the lights, and then those lights are set on a timer.
And then Eisenhower turns them on?
Eisenhower, so that's a 24-hour tower.
No, but who turns them on then?
So at Eisenhower Airport, it's the air traffic controllers in the tower.
Right. And then
so what we would do in our proposal, if we had the lighting, there's a system. Once again, there's technology where these lights are hooked to the frequency that we use for traffic separation.
Okay.
And when you click your mic a number of times, it will turn the lights on, and then those lights are on a timer.
Okay. Well, thanks for the education on that.
Yeah, thanks for the question.
Yeah, just Commissioner Howell, is that airport down in the Derby area? Is it lighted? Is it light?
Oh, yes.
Lighted? It is as well. Okay, lighted. More lighted.
Clear. Not all the time, but they do have lighting we can turn on, I believe. It's not lit at all. So
All right, I just
don't have to deal with it.
I'm trying to compare other strips that we know.
I mean, they can land. They don't have a restriction of sunlight at that airport, I don't believe. They can land whenever they need to.
Most of the time, what it comes down to with these private airports, it's just an issue of finance more than anything. It's just the expense of installing the lighting and whatnot.
Don't they also have a way that they, on some airports, they can click the radio on some frequency and it actually turns the landing lights on for the runway? They can actually see the runway on a grass strip. They can pick out the right spot to land because they click the radio. That actually actually switches the lights on for a short time or something.
Exactly. That's exactly the way the systems work.
Yeah. It's not a lot of lighting. It's just simply to highlight where the runway is, because on a grass strip you really can't tell a whole lot. So.
Yeah, right. Like, the large airports, they may be spaced a couple hundred feet apart. It's just to outline the area.
Sure. Yeah, go ahead, Commissioner Howe.
Thank you, Chairman. First of all, I love your tie.
Thank you very much.
You must have wore that because you knew you were going to talk to some Patriots here or something.
I just felt it was appropriate. I liked it.
It was very nice. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
So I just want to reiterate, or I guess ask again, how many hangars do we think we're going to see on this property overall? How many hangars will be built for?
So legal has our covenants now, but we've added each residence can have a hangar and an outbuilding, so 9 hangars. And again, this would all be private, so no commercial activity whatsoever.
And these hangars will probably be for like a single airplane? fine? A single?
1, 2 airplanes,
okay,
whatever. But yeah, just single hangar, so 9 total.
Do you plan on having any type of fuel services there?
None planned. It's a little different. So a lot of the farmers, my neighbor there just to the east, he's got a couple fuel tanks. He's a farmer, rancher. But the aviation fuel is a little more complex. So you worry about contamination, you worry about water. You've got to suction feed off the top. It's just a little more complex. There's no plans for it. If there are, obviously, it'd have to be in accordance with any state and local, federal rules. But we're not going to sell fuel. There won't be, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, and no one's planning to do like any type of FBO services on these airplanes?
No.
Okay.
No, I think by the county, the definition for the way they've zoned it, the way it's zoned, there can be no commercial activity whatsoever.
So no one's going to become like an airplane inspector and fly them in? And
No commercial maintenance, no storage. And then as far as the fuel goes, typically what people do, because most of these small airports don't have on-site fuel, so you bring enough fuel home when you come back to the air park and land that you have enough to leave and get to an airport with fuel. And these airplanes burn typically anywhere from 5 to maybe 10 gallons an hour. So if somebody needed it, a small fuel container like you'd think of for your riding lawnmower or whatnot can be brought out. They could bring it out personally, fill up the airplane, enough fuel to fly an hour, 100 miles or so, maybe go to Eisenhower and get fuel and continue on.
Who's going to maintain this trip in terms of like keeping it mowed and all the any type of maintenance needs to be done? Who's going to take care of all that?
So that's going to be split between the 9 residents.
You have like a little covenant between them?
The covenants are right now at legal. Yep. Okay.
What about insurance? Is this if there's an incident out there, is there any type of liability to the people who essentially corporately own this little strip?
Yep. So the runway itself is going to be owned by the homeowners association, and we're starting off with a proposed $1 million liability policy. That's pretty typical, and then we're going to review it annually because we understand that. We may need more, as inflation happens, the cost of building and whatnot goes up. So we're going to readdress the policy amount every year. But yeah, the HOA that's one of the responsibilities of the HOA. Besides the maintenance is insurance.
Are there any weather restrictions on this type of a field? Like it has to be VFR, I'm sure, but
it has to be, yes.
And again, it's uncontrolled spaces, so I assume they just call in that I'm going to take off, and they look around. They don't see an airplane. They just take off. They can toggle the lights if there were some, but there may not be for a while. Is there any ideas about whether or not they can fly over the city to the north or land from the north? Any concerns about airplanes being that close to the city on a final approach or climbing out?
No. So this is my cursor. So the traffic pattern here, if you can see the cursor, so the runway, you'll have to imagine here is down the middle. I'm sure there's a better slide. But the traffic pattern, if you will, is going to be on the west side. So if you're landing south, the path will be just south of the city. You see it out of the view. You would fly eastbound here. This would be what they'd call a base leg in the traffic pattern. You'll make a right turn and land to the south. So we don't expect a lot of overflight over the city of Cheney. And the FAA, when we got our approval, I'm not sure if you have the FAA report in your packet, but they've looked at the airport, the proposal, and they determined it was safe in respect to the use of airspace and the safety of persons and property on the ground. So the FAA has taken that into account.
Okay, then I guess I don't really have any other questions. I was kind of on the fence, but that tie convinced me, so I'll probably support this.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much.
Thanks.
Jeff, you might be able to help me with this, or Scott, you could. I just want to make sure the public has clarity and I have full clarity. So the CAB 3 put in a prohibition against lighting of the airstrip. Cheney, their planning commission, asked for lighting or did not ask for light?
Yeah. Sure. So the way that this happened is that Cheney went first, and when Cheney recommended approval, they did not include a condition that would prohibit lighting. So later on, then the next step was it went to the CAB, and at the CAB's recommending it to you with a condition that would prohibit lighting, and then the MAPC did similar to what the CAB did.
So the MAPC recommendation coming to us is a prohibition on lighting, yet the applicant is asking us to consider to remove that prohibition, basically.
Right, to essentially go with what the Cheney recommendation is, which does not include that condition.
Would just remove the prohibition against lighting from the staff. Okay, that makes sense. One question I have for the applicant: is it customary to have? I think that we have not heard from anyone. I know there were no registered protests. We haven't heard from the public yet. But if it were me, I would be curious about airplanes flying in at 3 o'clock in the morning when I was trying to sleep. If I live close to the property, are there regulations against that, or in this type of airstrip, or what does that look like?
Well, so first and foremost, we understand that we got to be neighborly, or this isn't going to last long term. The prohibitions are we must have the airfield lit to land at night. Again, if you were to adopt the city's recommendation, which includes the 4 restrictions from the Metro Area Planning Commission, which would essentially allow lighting. The FAA has allowed it in their report, and the odor and some of these other airports, these other fields are the same way. So what we would do is my plan. Right now, we have no plans for lighting, but if it ever came up and we had the budget, I would like to talk to these neighbors and come up and self-impose a curfew, because we know 2 a.m., 3 a.m., maybe 9 p.m. is too late. But we're in the winter, during the solstice in December. I mean, 5 o'clock, we're shut down, and maybe a lot of these neighbors aren't even home.
Sure.
They're still at work or driving home.
Yeah, that's helpful, Griff. Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah, if I could, sir, I just want to point out that anything other than what the MAPC recommended would require an override, so 4 out of 5. I'd also point out to both you, everyone, and the applicant that you do have the option of adding, maybe not including the prohibition on lighting, but adding a condition that would require them to utilize an automated system with the intent that the airstrip is only lit while in use. You can also add a condition that would set certain time parameters. But also, if it is approved with prohibition on lighting, and if in the future the applicant decides that he does want lighting, he could have another opportunity to come back and amend the conditional use, and at that time, that'd be an opportunity to evaluate whether or not it's a good fit for what's going on in the area. So there's lots of options. You also have the option of sending it back to the Planning Commission for them to kind of consider this information as well.
Okay. That's helpful clarity. Commissioner Wise.
Yes, that is very helpful. And I think that whenever you were visiting the CAB, you were just fine with the prohibiting the lighting because you don't wish to have late flights coming in because you're living there as well. I'm wondering if we did that and we just went with the prohibited lighting, and then if you wanted to see how it goes and come back to us and maybe get that removed later on, maybe that does help you with setting the tone if this isn't an all-night airstrip. I don't know. You were fine with it at the CAB meeting, so I guess I just wanted to see, would that be something that you'd be able to work with if we did it that way today?
Yeah, most definitely. So we don't want to jeopardize the plan, the overall plan as we have it now. So we wouldn't want to see it get kicked back to the Metro Area Planning Commission or otherwise denied just for this lighting restriction. We never planned to have lights. It was a tactical error on my part. I thought afterwards, 5 p.m. I mean, that's early to not, pretty early. I don't think we'd be disturbing anyone at 5:15, 5:30 landing, but we don't want to jeopardize what could possibly happen here today, which would be having your approval. So, I mean, if you see fit to include the lighting restriction, we would rather do that and proceed than go back to Planning Commission.
Okay, good to know. Thank you. Commissioner Howe?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just curious, during the testimony on this case before MAPC, was this issue of lighting discussed before MAPC just sort of deliberate on the case? Or was it only when they came to their own conversation? Go ahead.
It was, yeah.
Because that discussion took place at the CAB meeting, and at the time, folks thought that it was resolved, and I think that's how staff presented it at the Planning Commission, is that, hey, at the CAB meeting, there was a discussion about lighting. It was resolved that, the applicant was in agreement to not have it. That's all that was talked about, and they just went on to the next step.
This is kind of an important point, though. So, again, even at the CAB meeting, so I don't know if you guys presented your case before they started to discuss it and made these decisions, but the biggest negative effect for the lighting is going to be for people who are living right there that don't have airplanes. No one there is not going to have an airplane. These are special homes. You're not going to buy this lot unless you plan to have an airplane. And the people there are going to want to have some ability to land after 5 o'clock p.m. in the wintertime. Or take off at 6 a.m. When the sun's not up yet. So, I think having some self-imposed restrictions on that group, determining what times they're willing to let airplanes take off and land, even though it's dark out. Again, my experience on these grass fields is the lights are not on all the time. They click the radio, they turn the lights on for a short time, and then they land or take off, and the lights go back off again. So it's not like they're on all the time. And the biggest negative effect on this would be for people who live right there, or possibly in the city. But no one spoke against this from that angle. So this is almost like we created a restriction, not from testimony, but because we thought it was a good idea. And I don't know if I agree with that. I think if this was such an important issue, we would have heard from the people that would have said, "I have a real problem with this."
I think it did come up at the CAB meeting in terms of lighting, and I think it sounded like there was a discussion there, and that's where the condition evolved from. So,
but did they understand what I just described? Did they thought these lights were going to be like stadium lights on all the time?
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to refer back to the minutes to check.
I don't think the average person out there may not know what I just said.
Yeah.
If it's on like stadium lights, like a football game's going on, and that's on all the time, that would be a real problem. I get that. That's not what this is. They're on for 10 minutes and they go back off. So I think that they need. I want to ensure they understand what this restriction, what it is that are restricting. Because I don't think that the average person would know that unless you told them that. If you didn't tell them that, I don't know that they would know that.
Yeah. No. Again, I think Mr. Longwell. So I don't think, from my recollection, and Ms. Wise can speak to it. She was there. I don't think the CAB took issue with nighttime operations and the lighting. Again, there's other airports in the county that have the lighting. The FAA has approved us for lighting, if you will, in their report. They mentioned we can use it at night if it's lit. But so when I presented, again, I think it was an error on my part. So when I presented, I said, well, we don't want nighttime operations. We don't want the noise in the middle of the night. We certainly know our neighbors don't. We want to be neighborly. But again, at that point, I didn't consider a 5 p.m. sunset.
Right. So when you say nighttime, they're thinking darkness, but you probably were saying 3 in the morning type of thing, or 11:30 p.m. They're not thinking 6 a.m. or 6 o'clock p.m.
Right.
Which is entirely reasonable, I would think.
Right. So that's where we would. So that's where we would, if being lit, that's where we would talk to the neighbors and we'd self-impose a curfew, something reasonable. I mean, we have, being in a rural area, 5 p.m., 6 p.m., 7 p.m. I mean, we could have ATVs, side-by-sides, combines, a large combine running, at full throttles, making about the same decibel or noise as an airplane. At takeoff and landing, you're talking maybe 60 seconds, and combines harvesting all night under lights. I think what Mr. Longwell was doing, so we had presented to the CAB, we were going to be daytime only. We hadn't considered the early, the late sunrise or the early sunset. So I was asked, well, how are we going to address keeping it nighttime only? And I said, well, what we'll do is we'll put it in the covenants. And somebody else there on the CAB said, well, being a member of an HOA, I think he said for 30 some odd years, he's seen an HOA override some stipulations of the covenants with maybe a 2/3 majority or 75% majority. So I think what Mr. Longwell was doing at that point is he thought they weren't opposed to the lights. He thought he was protecting us by codifying that restriction in their recommendations.
Well, I understand the story now. I don't think it's appropriate for us to again, the only thing I would say is if there's going to be some lighting, it should be temporary lighting that is switched on and off as needed. That would be my only stipulation. I think that's reasonable. That's the way other grass fields are done all across this country.
Right.
That's normal. In fact, it would be abnormal not to do that. I would actually maybe say it may be inadvisable to not have lighting that can be switched on. Imagine someone's flying in the area and they need an emergency landing. This field could be used in an emergency landing.
Correct.
But not if there's not lights. So I really think to be abnormal is a major concern for me. We need to be normal. If we have a grass field, it needs to be set up normally, and normally says they can switch the lights on with a radio. I don't know if everybody else understands that, but I would be glad to approve this or to agree to this under that condition. And any other option to change the lighting to be on all the time or off all the time, in my opinion, is misguided. So whatever it takes to get to that point is what I'm going to support. Thank you so much.
Very good. Okay. Jeff, why don't you hang close in case there's some other questions that come about. And at this point in time, why don't we go ahead and open up the public hearing and hear from the public. There were 3 people signed up. One of them just spoke. Jeff had signed up on the public comments, so that leaves 2 more. When I call your name, if you just come up to the podium, we'll give you 5 minutes. Our friendly county clerk will let you know when the time expires. If you can give your name and address for the record, that would be helpful. First up is Renee Patrick.
She was one of our...
Okay. Renee is not speaking on this matter, so we'll move forward. Stacy DeVore. Hi, Stacy.
I'm Stacy, and I am part owner of this air park. I just really accidentally signed that as a part of being here. I thought it was an attendance thing, so I really don't have. He does a great job speaking for us. So
very good.
But I agree with what you were saying. Thank you.
So, by your signature here, we'll acknowledge that you're present. So, very good. Okay, that concludes the public comment section. We'll close public comment. We'll bring the discussion back to the bench. Commissioners, any questions or comments for staff or the applicant? Okay, seeing none, we're open to make a motion.
Okay, if I may, I'd like to make a motion to approve with the conditional use with amended conditions. So I move that the board approves the conditional use with the following amendments to the conditions to remove the prohibition of lighting on the strip. Did I do that right? Did I capture it?
Response to Deputy County Councilor, yes, that's appropriate. And just based off of the discussion, it's my understanding that some of the considerations of the owners all being in the area mean that the potential lighting might not actually be as much of a factor as was originally considered.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Agreed.
You have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to ask the maker of the motion if she would be willing to amend the motion to. Again, I think they can come back and ask for changes in the future, but I think that the relevant words were that the lighting would be allowed only when in use. In other words, when there's takeoff or landing that's imminent, the lighting in that situation would be allowed, but otherwise the lights would be off. To me, that would be the goal, and I would hope that the motion would be in that direction. I think to just say the lighting's allowed all the time, I think that kind of reinstates the concern of the people who spoke against the lighting in the first place. So I would like to see the motion allow for lighting, but only while in use.
I'd be okay with that. Do I need to restate it?
If I may, then the motion would be that move that the board approves the conditional use with the conditions originally presented, but with the amendment that on item number 2, it be amended to read lighting of the airstrip is limited to those times when the airstrip is in active use for the arrival and departure of airplanes.
Yes.
Okay. Does that capture the motion?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Howard, would you like to do the second?
I would second that, please.
Okay. All clear, County Clerk? Okay. So we have a motion. We have a second. Legal says we're good. MAPD says we're good. Go ahead and call the roll.
Commissioner BLUBAUGH.
Aye.
Commissioner Wise.
Aye.
Commissioner Howell.
Aye.
Commissioner Meitzner. Chairman Beatty.
Aye. Okay. Very good. Thank you. Yeah. Very good. Madam Clerk, next item.
Item O, reconsideration of item M of item 2 of the minutes of the March 6, 2025 meeting of the Board of Bids and Contracts, HHW AV Upgrades Household Hazardous Waste.
Okay, Tom.
Chairman, if I could interject here. Good morning, Commission. Tom Stolz, County Manager. I recommend that we defer item O for more staff analysis. I'm going to have a committee of including communications and facilities look at this request, and we would bring it back April 9th.
Okay. So the request from the manager is a deferral of item O to April 9th. Commissioners, any questions, comments, concerns? Okay. Looking at item O, I'll move to defer item O until the April 9th Board of County Commission meeting.
Second.
A motion and seconds. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner BLUBAUGH.
Aye.
Commissioner Wise.
Aye.
Commissioner Howell.
Aye.
Commissioner Meitzner. Chairman Beatty.
Aye. Okay. Joe, hang tight because it looks like we still have work for you to do. But before we do that, Commissioner Meitzner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to recognize that one of our earlier appointees, Joanne Kilgore, is in the audience, and you are not here for the swearing in, but I just want to thanks for being here, and I just want to thanks for your service on that board. So thank you. That's all I wanted to add.
Very good.
Thank you.
I would just say that I know Joanna because she is the owner of Moxie Junction in Mays, one of my favorite coffee shops, and she's also going to be opening in Keachai here before long. So she's kind of a Mays hero. We love Joanna and all the work she does there. Okay, Madam Clerk, next item.
Item P, report of the Board of Bids and Contracts, regular meeting on March 20th, 2025.
There's Joe Thomas.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Joe Thomas, Purchasing Director. The Board of Bids and Contracts regular meeting of March 20th. We have 3 items. We are seeking your approval. First one is telematics equipment and services for Public Works, and this recommendation is to utilize the Sourcewell contract 020221-SAM, and that's with Samsara Incorporated. This is good through March 26, 2026, in the amount of $82,089. Item number 2 is an ambulance for emergency medical services and fleet management, and this recommendation is to utilize the HGAC buy contract number AEV-AM 10-23, and that's with American Response Vehicles and American Emergency Vehicles in the amount of $390,377. And our final item, item 3, is the waste tire transportation services for environmental resources. Recommendation is to accept the proposal from Champlin Tire Recycling, and this is in the amount of $198 per scale ton. I'll be happy to try to answer any questions you may have and recommend the approval.
Okay, 3 items today. Joe,
Yes, sir.
appreciate that. Commissioners, any questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, I'll move to approve the recommendations of the Board of Bids and Contracts, March 20th, 2025.
Second.
Motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner BLUBAUGH.
Aye.
Commissioner Wise.
Aye.
Commissioner Howell.
Aye.
Commissioner Meitzner. Chairman Beatty.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Tom, would you be okay with we pause for a second and go to fire agenda? I know our fire chief and fire marshal would probably like to get back to work. So why don't we pause the county commission meeting, and I will officially call to order the governing body of Fire District Number 1. Madam Clerk, first item, please.
Roll call. Commissioner BLUBAUGH.
Or President.
Commissioner Wise.
Present.
Commissioner Howell.
Present.
Commissioner Meitzner. Chairman Beatty.
Present. Next item, please.
Public agenda.
No one has signed up for public agenda for the fire district. We'll keep moving. Next item, please.
Consideration of minutes. Item A, fire meeting minutes of February 12th, 2025.
Okay, everyone was present for this meeting. Any questions or comments on the fire meeting minutes? Okay, seeing none, I'll move to approve the fire meeting minutes of February 12th, 2025.
Second.
Motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner BLUBAUGH.
Aye.
Commissioner Wise.
Aye.
Commissioner Howell.
Aye.
Commissioner Meitzner. Chairman Beatty.
Aye. Next item, please.
Consent agenda.
Manager Stoltz.
Good morning again. Tom Stolz. Recommend approval of fire consent items B and C this morning.
Okay, Commissioners. 2 items on the consent agenda. Any questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, I'll move to approve the consent agenda items B and C.
Second.
Motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner BLUBAUGH.
Aye.
Commissioner Wise.
Aye.
Commissioner Howell.
Aye.
Commissioner Meitzner. Chairman Beatty.
Aye. Okay, next item, please.
Other.
Okay, anything under other? I would just simply say that there was a fantastic post that was made the other day from Sedgwick County Fire District number 1 about 2 of our firefighters. Captain Ingalls was one of them, and the drone footage that was taken that saved a woman's life. I know that KSN picked up the story, Cake picked up the story, maybe it was KWCH, and the imagery that was shown there. So I just want to acknowledge that that was an incredible story, incredible act of heroism, and the benefit of having technology in the department really saved a life. So I also have heard that the K9 dog was also deployed this week as well, and so there's a lot of activity in Sedgwick County Fire District 1. Appreciate all the work that's being done, but I posted on that. I saw the article. I thought it was remarkable work. I messaged some of the firefighters involved. So Chief Fire Marshal, congratulations on utilizing that drone technology in a way that really saved a woman's life. So very much appreciate it. Okay, anything else under other? Okay, moving forward. Next item.
Executive session.
No executive session for the fire district, so we'll officially adjourn the fire district meeting. Send the chief and the fire marshal on his way. Appreciate you both, and we'll reconvene the meeting of the Board of County Commission. Madam Clerk, next item.
Consent agenda.
Okay, Manager Stoltz.
Good morning again. Tom Stoltz, recommending consent items Q through AM on the regular agenda be approved.
Okay, Commissioners, we've all had a chance to review the consent agenda. Lots of items on it today. Any questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, I'll move to approve the consent agenda items Q through AM.
Second.
A motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner BLUBAUGH.
Aye.
Commissioner Wise.
Aye.
Commissioner Howell.
Aye.
Commissioner Meitzner.
Aye.
Chairman Beatty.
Aye. Next item, please.
Legislative issues.
Okay. Hopped out of her seat and running down the aisle, Miss Tanya Cole.
Morning, Commissioners. Tanya Cole, Assistant County Manager. So I am here today to give legislative update, and this is the last week of the legislative session. So on Monday, they started conference committees, and that will be all this week, and then with Friday being adjournment, and then back on April 10th to address vetoes, and we think that'll be about 2 or 3 days to do that. So just want to give you some updates on bills that we've been tracking. House Bill 2022, that's our elections bill. That was amended to the first Tuesday in March and primary and general elections. So we'll see that that has support across both floors. There was some opposition to the bill coming from school boards on the issue, but we do understand that there's support on both sides of the floor. So that'll be good, and we should see that pass. House Bill 2377, that's our sales tax bill. That's where we suggested that there is a freeze on the mill levy portion side, and also suggested that LKM and KAC form a group to come back and to study that, and then come back next year with after that study. And we understand that Senator Tyson likes this bill and wants to move forward. However, what we did understand is that there is a limit on only putting 5 bills in a conference committee support. In a conference committee report. So what we don't know is if this sales tax bill will actually make it in the conference committee report. So I guess we'll wait and see on that. If we want to look on a good news side, I guess we'll be ready for next year with this bill. So. Okay, House Bill 2331, that's our cremains bill. That is in conference committee, and there's no controversy on this bill, so we should be able to see that pass. Good. Senate Bill 119, that's our treasurer's bill. That's in conference committee and in motion, so we think that'll pass, and understand that treasurers will see some relief, as well as, of course, counties will see some relief for our property tax side. House Bill 2329, what we understood from Jason and Jessica, this is our juvenile justice bill that will provide some youth residential, putting youth in residential custody. This does have some challenges. We're hoping to get this placed into the Senate side and hoping to get that conferenced. When I kind of pass this back over to the Commission, I'm sure that Commissioner Howell will have some updates on that. Some more updates on conference committees on bills that we've been watching. House Bill 2088. This is what we had called fast track permits. Checked in with Scott on this. He said that the bill looked good. There's nothing as related to zoning cases, so that looks good. House Bill 2152. This is what we call the banker's bill. This looks good, and that was something that our deputy CFO had provided input with bankers as well. So we're happy with where this bill is at. House Bill 2365, this is the South Central Regional Mental Health Hospital bill. That's also in conference committee, so happy to see that as we are heavily involved in the mental health hospital. That'll be going up here soon. Okay, now I'm going to move on to the property tax side. Yesterday, and this kind of happened fast, there was a conference committee report on House Bill 2125 and provided some information to commissioners, and a letter went up to our South Central delegation. This bill is going to be pretty impactful to Sedgwick County, and I'll just summarize this, and of course, commissioners, if you want to weigh in on this as well. Basically, the impact on this bill would disincentivize growth in communities and would increase cost for borrowers. There would be an election that is an unfunded mandate, and the cost would be borne by counties. Even if the county would not exceed the revenue neutral rate, if any taxing jurisdiction within the county, we would have to hold the election and absorb all those costs. The requirement outlined in this bill, notably that governments must notify their intent to exceed revenue neutral rate by June 15th, which can't be implemented practically because the county cannot logistically provide notice that they're going to exceed the revenue neutral rate on the same day that all taxing entities are receiving the tax information they need to set their budgets. And then the other fourth piece that is pretty detrimental is that it's not including an exception for general obligation bonds, which puts bond ratings at risk and likely leads to lowering of municipal bond ratings. And this exception has been included in previous tax lids, in part for this reason. This leads to higher interest rates for taxpayers. So we sent, the commissioners sent a letter to the South Central Kansas delegation imploring them to say no on this CCR 2125 and ask them to explore other options such as House Bill 2396, as we had provided amendments to that with considerations for our suggested amendments. So that's kind of where we're at. I know there's other property tax bills, 2396, as I had mentioned. We had sent those amendments up. I know that the Senate has a substitute on that. And then there's Senate Bill 35 that the House amended. They had made some changes. To the election official, and then also changed it from the mill levy to assess valuations. Those were great, but they did not include the bonding in full faith and credit language on that change to Senate Bill 35. So I think we're just kind of waiting to see what happens with property taxes, but providing input to our lobbyist when we can. So I will leave it at that, and then commissioners kind of hand it back over to you, Chairman, if you have anything you'd like to add.
Okay, thank you. And let me just pause real quick and thank you publicly for the work that you do on the legislative side of this. This has been saying rather frequently in the last few weeks is just how important the legislative piece of what we do is because of our relationship with the state and all the work that goes on here in Sedgwick County. So you're the point person for that, for Sedgwick County government. Appreciate all the work you've done. Legal's done a lot of work with this. Finance has been heavily involved this year as well. So just want to thank everybody from the staff perspective on the work that goes into the legislative agenda and all the conversations. So there will be some questions. Commissioner Howe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to get started here, I just wanted to just share on House Bill 2329. Again, that left the House with really strong support out of the House. And normally when that happens, you would think you would at least get a hearing in the Senate. But we are not going to get a hearing in the Senate. It was we already missed our chance to do that this year. It is conferenceable, and I know that the chairman on the House side is interested in seeing this conference into a different shell, if you will. So I'm not saying it can't happen this year, but we're down to the very end of the wire here. So I don't have a lot of hope that it's going to do anything this year. It is a 2-year cycle for every bill, so we have all next session to continue working on that bill. I would just say, if you know anybody in, especially the northeast part of our state, that deals with juvenile offenders, it means corrections or provides community-based services or foster care or juvenile court district attorneys and law enforcement officers that have opinions on this bill. There's a lot of support from a lot of different groups, but I don't think the legislators from the northeast of our state have actually heard from them. So we need to activate that voice and make sure that they actually do speak up and share their support for what we're trying to do here in Sedgwick County. The fight is going to have to escalate a little bit higher, and I think we've done a lot here, and I've had a lot of appreciation from our South Central delegation on this bill. There's just so much support for it, and for it to fall flat on the other because someone up in the Northeast doesn't understand the importance. It's just wrong in my opinion. So we have some work to do. I'm not going to give up on the bill. I think we have next year. We'll try again. I do want to talk about the the Senate substitute for House Bill 2125. If I understand, I just checked a little bit ago, the CCR is still not out. It's not posted on the website. I thought there was a chance they were going to try to vote on that today. It's not on the line for final action today yet. I don't think they can bring it up now because it's too late for today, but I do expect we'll see that come up tomorrow. And it's interesting that as technical as this bill is, and as important as it is to the state, to have that not posted 24 hours before they vote is, my opinion, does not provide a lot of opportunity for us to really know what's in that bill. I know we listened to the committee debate the negotiation, if you will, but that's not as good as seeing it in writing what the CCR actually says on paper. A couple of questions I have is, again, if there is an election, I assume that every jurisdiction that has that exceeds the, I guess it's 4% or CPI. Is it 4% now?
4%.
So any taxing jurisdiction that exceeds 4% or CPI, whichever is less, will have to have an election. And again, so we don't know right now how many taxing jurisdictions do we have now?
170 total.
So any one of them, if I understand. Now, one of my questions is, does this apply to things like townships and cemetery districts and schools? I don't know that it does. Is this just for cities and counties? I think that's a huge question, and I don't know the answer to that question. That's a major part of this. Excuse me. I don't think this includes, I don't even know how you can do this. I don't believe it includes new construction. And if that's true, I don't know how they could not include that. But I understand that's intentionally not going to let you increase your assessed value of your taxing jurisdiction by recognizing new construction. So the assessed value is artificially held low for your jurisdiction. Was what that means. I don't know how the math works on that. I'm very concerned about that. I know that the election itself is a problem. The timing does not work. When we testified on the tax lid in 2015, that was our focus in 2015. In fact, I remember I testified on this bill in 2015 on the tax lid, trying to fix the election issue, and we fixed it. And somehow we ended up now with kind of a mess again. So I'm not quite sure how this tax schedule between getting the appraised value from the appraiser's office to the county clerk. He's got several weeks worth of work he has to do. It's very, very technical. And then getting that to the taxing jurisdictions to know what they're going to do with their budgets in time to trigger an election or not. There's just not time in the schedule for that process to happen. So I don't know how it's going to change, but either the appraiser has to back up his dates, or somehow we have to adopt a budget later in the year. It is truly a problem. I understand they're still talking about passing one of the constitutional amendments also. So this focuses on the 4% cap is on the spending side, and it's 4% growth in your budget. And I don't know if it's just property taxes or they're talking about budget. I don't know that either. Mm-hmm. Is it just the budget or is it property tax levy? Property tax levy. So property tax levy is held to 4% or CPI, whichever's less. But I believe this is essentially a tax lid, and I've been vocally supportive of tax lids. But I've focused on more of a CPI limit, not a CPI or 4%, which is arbitrary. That arbitrary number in some years is going to cause a force. And I understand the idea of starve the beast. I've been in that camp. I've supported that type of idea in the past, but it is kind of reckless because we don't know what the consequences are. We don't know if we have to lay off public safety officers or how do you absorb an arbitrary cap? And I can tell you, it's my intention as a commissioner here, I will never support pushing our budget over to an election. So to me, this 4% cap or CPI, whichever is less, is something we're going to have to live by. And when we do that, if inflation exceeds that 4%, we will have no choice but to contract what we do here at Sedgwick County. We will have to reduce FTEs. It's going to have consequences on our services. And to me, it's arbitrary. I think when you talk about CPI, you're growing at a rate that makes, in other words, you stay static. You grow with the economy. But when you start talking about or less, another number, that creates problems. Again, I love the conservative spirit of what they're trying to do, but I don't know that this is the plan. And then along with this, I think one of the constitutional amendments is still being planned. What I've heard now is that they're talking about a 4% cap. Have you heard this?
I've heard that they're still talking about HCR 5011.
Yeah, so they're gonna use that, and I believe it's a 4% cap. But a couple of caveats: when you transfer a home from a buyer to a seller, from a seller to a buyer, that cap will stay in place. It will not be reset to a fair market value.
That's awful.
I don't know. Am I saying that right? Am I right? He gave me a thumbs up, so I'm right about that. That's what's being proposed. And again, if you ask children if they want ice cream for dinner, they're going to say yes. I think if you ask taxpayers on a ballot, do you want to do these things? It's going to be a 99% approval. It will pass. And I'd like to encourage the legislature. It's hard not to vote for the one and only vehicle you got to lower property taxes or do what you think is going to lower property taxes. I'm not sure this is the right mixture of policy. I think there's problems here. They've not really heard us. And I've talked to a couple South Central legislators who didn't get any messaging from us yesterday. I don't know if we can maybe ramp that up again, but I've encouraged them to say if this doesn't pass, they go back to conference, they come up with another package of policy to try something different. And that can happen very quickly. It can happen in one day. So just because they vote no on this doesn't mean that they can't do something this year that it will help the taxpayers. I just think this one is so flawed. I love the idea of trying to be conservative and to encourage us to be as efficient as we possibly can. I think all of those are well-intentioned, but this package is a mess, and I think that I would encourage them to vote no. However, I know they are going to pass something today or tomorrow, probably tomorrow, and I think they'll probably adjourn before Friday. So, the governor, if it's not 84 votes in the House and 27 or more in the Senate, I expect that the governor would probably veto this bill, and they may not be able to override that. And they may come back. They may get into session with nothing. And after all this work, to actually have a bill that can't be overridden by House and Senate, in my opinion, is a failure. So they should pass a bill that gets the votes necessary to not be vetoed, or that can be overridden by both bodies. And I think right now this is such a mess. I don't know that this is the right bill. I support property tax reform, and we have to be on that bandwagon. I am all for it, but they're not focusing on the real problem. And I've said this over and over again. One of our real problems here is the appraisal process has too much air band in the appraisal process, especially for those that are overvalued. There should be a focus on them, and there is a way to do that. I've given a proposal to the legislature to focus on those that are overvalued. And I think that should be part of our focus. I don't mind a tax lid, but it should not be arbitrary. It should be based on economic factors. It should be math-based, formulaic-based, not just arbitrary. And if you could do those two things, and you could also deal with this issue of the elections, got to work. If you can solve that problem, I think the protest petition actually was brilliant. It solved the problem. It saves hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Sure does.
And it is very effective. You put the people in charge of their government. The protest petition actually made a lot of sense. I would wholeheartedly support that plan. So there is some good policy being discussed, but this isn't it. So I really think that I don't know what else we can do right now. I'm throwing my hands up saying I support reform, but I just don't think this is the right way to go. So I don't know how to change it, but we've got to really engage today to get our legislators to understand the points. Thank you so much.
Tanya, question of clarity. HB 2125, the property tax bill that we submitted a letter asking them to consider other options other than 2125. The piece that Commissioner Howe is referencing, that if we exceed revenue neutral rate, it goes to an election. What if, am I saying that wrong?
Exceeding revenue neutral rate triggers, if you will, publications and notifications and a roll call vote. What they're talking about is if you exceed CPI or 4%, whichever's less, that drives it to an election for whichever jurisdiction does that.
To approve it, yes. Forgive me. But my question, the point of my question is, that's not just for Sedgwick County government's budget. If a township does this, if a school board does this, if a city does this, who pays for that election at that point?
My understanding is the burden is borne by the county.
The county, so if one of our 20 cities exceeds this and has to trigger an election, Sedgwick County government has to pay for, and the county taxpayers have to pay for that. So if I live in Mays, in Bel Air, not to pick on District 1, sorry, it's just an arbitrary completely, or any other city does this, taxpayers from Mays, based in the county, that are county taxpayers, have to pay for this.
That's correct.
That's silly. It's absolutely silly. Okay. Other questions on legislative agenda? Go ahead, Commissioner.
Just a comment. Tanya, I want to thank you. I know this has been a short session, but I know it has been a lot of work, and the updates, particularly between you and the Watkins group and Sunday giving us updates. So I just really appreciate everything you've done for us.
Thank you, Commissioner. I get a lot of help from legal and from finance and experts, but I do appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Very good. Okay. Well, coming to a close, I'm sure there'll be a recap that you'll come up and give us as soon as this stuff is completed.
Absolutely, and there's still a couple days left, so I'm sure I'll be giving you updates. So.
We're working. Okay.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Madam Clerk, next item.
Committee reports.
Okay, Commissioners, any committee reports you'd like to announce publicly? Okay, seeing none. Next item, please.
Other.
Anything under other? Commissioner Howell.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to have a personal privilege here to present, if you will, some of my concern. Again, I thank you for Nicole and thank you for Kevin for putting together some excerpts from a radio podcast that happened Sunday night. And let me just reiterate again, that everyone involved in this video are the friends of mine. I have great respect for them. I personally am, as a conservative, I generally love what Kansas Policy Institute stands for. They have been a voice of reason in so many topics in so many ways, and the leader of that, Dave Traubert, I have a great appreciation and respect for him personally. John Whitmer, his radio show, I have great respect for him as well. He's a true conservative. He brings forward the issues that we can hopefully understand them deeply. But I'm bothered by what was said on the radio Sunday night. I wanted to kind of go through why I'm upset. Again, so with all due respect, I've asked Kevin and Nicole to prepare these little the audio clips for us to listen to what was said. And so, Nicole, would you be willing to play the first one of those to get us started?
Some city councils and county commissioners are literally taxing people out of their homes. They're simultaneously padding their bank balances. A recent study by the Kansas Policy Institute shows the state's 35 largest counties and the 25 largest cities are sitting on more than $5 billion in cash reserves as of the end of 2022. With us now to walk us through the data is Dave Traubert from the Kansas Policy Institute. Let's look at the nearest big county, which is Johnson, and of course my home, Sedgwick County. Those two are hoarding nearly $3 billion in cash. That's obscene.
Yeah, that's especially obscene to people who are being taxed out of their homes. This is spread out in both counties. It's spread out between the cities and the counties. But like in the case of Sedgwick County, the county itself had $320 million. The city of Wichita had $658 million.
So let's talk about that first clip for just a minute. And by the way, it gets worse. They used a couple of words in there that I find very concerning. It talks about padding their bank balances. Again, this revenue, whatever is in our bank balances, is not to benefit us personally in any way. We need to govern and provide services to the people we serve. We are their servants. And we provide services that they demand and expect, and we do this in the most efficient way possible. Some of the money that they're referring to is sitting there for a certain reason. I've asked Lindsay Porras, our CFO, to come up and provide a little bit of commentary. I'm going to ask you a couple quick questions, Lindsay. When they talk about $320,000 and they use the word cash reserves, can you please explain? I'm sorry, 320. Excuse me. $320 million for Sedgwick County, which is part of the $5 billion they referenced, and they use this word cash reserves, and they say Sedgwick County has $320 million we're sitting on. And by the way, the implication is that we're being disingenuous to the people we tax. We're raising taxes. It's unnecessary. We should use the money we've already collected. We have we should cut government. We should cut spending and cut the mill levy and give people some tax relief. And because we can do that, because we have all this money piled up, and we've already taxed people. So can you please provide some clarity on that number and where that came from?
Sure. So for the record, Lindsay Porras, your CFO, what is being referenced is information that Kansas Policy Institute went out on the state website and pulled down what are called certified budgets. So every year when a commission or a council or some special districts adopts a budget, there is a certain form that's prescribed in state law that we must complete and turn in. And I'm going to get a little technical, but what that budget requires, what state law requires, is that we report on what's called a modified accrual basis. So it basically means whatever activity is happening in a fund needs to be reported such that if we have cash that's received, wonderful. If we have revenues that we're expecting to receive in the next 60 days, we can post that. But that modified accrual basis requires that we also say at the time that you all approve an expense or I approve an expense as a department head, that encumbrance, that commitment of funds actually exists in that moment. We have spent no cash at that time. We have just said we intend to buy this product or we intend to buy this service. And that therefore gives a very distorted view of our actual cash reserves that we truly have. So also think, for example, at the end of last year, we collected more investment income than anticipated. You all authorized a transfer of funds from the general fund where that money was received, and it was posted to the equipment reserve fund. Because of the way that that looks in a budget world, that shows as an expense to the general fund, but as a revenue to that equipment reserve fund. That means that that affects that ending fund balance in those budgets. Organizationally, did anything change? Absolutely not. We didn't actually pay out cash to anybody, right? And so that's why using certified budgets for this, because of the way the state requires us to do our information, not to say that it's not valid and it's not useful from a budget perspective, but to then turn around and to state that that is cash distorts the picture. It shows an ignorance of the way the public finance system works in Kansas. We actually have an audited document that goes out every year. This is our most recently completed audit document. This document on page A44 shows that we have cash, including investments, at the end of 2023, bearing in mind that ARPA was still well in play at that time, of $304.5 million. That was our cash balance for the entire organization. Now, let's also keep in mind that when we talk about $300 million, and as Commissioner Howell spoke to, we have a lot of different accounts that happen. As you hear when Brent presents to you our quarterly financial report, we have more than 30 operating funds. We have capital improvement funds. We have PBC funds. We collect revenue on behalf of WSU and remit that. We receive funding from the state for ComCare services. All of those things then go into one big
big bucket. And the most important thing that I think this report misses, and what Commissioner Howell alluded to earlier, is we have things like a fleet management fund. We charge departments set aside so that we essentially create a savings account every year to then replace vehicles. We are self-funded for health insurance, so we collect that premium money and then spend it out. But we do have a balance in that fund, and we must, because we're self-insured. We also have a lot of self-insurance on our vehicles. We have self-insurance up to a certain point, even on our property. We have to have cash. We have to have liquid cash in order to access that, but we also have to have the fund balance. We know that we're going to collect so much money in the course of a year, and we count on that. So when we speak about this, I think it's also really important in that same audit document, we break out all of our governmental funds and we show how much cash is actually in each fund. We have funds, but for the general fund, everything is tied to a specific discrete activity that's required. It's a standard. And so in the general fund, at the end of 2023, our cash, including investments in the general fund, was $82.4 million. You also have a policy, a very, I would argue, one of the best policies that we have in our books that consistently gets us a AAA, that actually speaks specifically to how much cash you're going to have at the end of each quarter, how much fund balance you're going to have at the end of each quarter, how you can use any excess cash. It talks about a 20% minimum. And again, we don't actually want to get to 20%. That's the minimum we can keep before we have to reimburse it. So our available unrestricted cash, available unrestricted fund balance at the end of 2023 was $27 million. That's what we could put toward other operations, but then that would draw us down to our bare minimum level. And in that wonderful policy that you have, there are specific requirements and specific things that say how you can spend it. That's why it's a part of your capital improvement project every year. That's why you have a debt policy that says that you want to pay as you go first and debt second. So you are overall, while you're getting critiqued for hoarding cash, when we actually look at Moody's, our most recent credit report, they compare us to other AAA counties. We are less than almost all of our peers on AAA. Our available fund balance is significantly less by about $25 million or 10% compared to other AAA peers. Our net unrestricted cash, other entities have about $373 million. We reported that $304 million. We are still able to earn AAA because you all take conservative measures to rein in our resources and how we use those despite being less than our AAA peers. So I think it is really disingenuous for anyone to say that you all are hoarding cash or that you're being irresponsible with funds.
That is the word they use. They said we're hoarding cash, and they said it's obscene. So I find that, you talk about being disingenuous or trying to spin things in a certain way to create a certain message. I think the way they presented this is completely misleading. Okay, I might use the word reckless, perhaps. It's not the truth, and we need to settle on the truth. And for anybody who heard that or heard what's going to play next, if they have this opinion that county government is mismanaged, that it's bloated, that the elected officials are ignorant, we don't ask good questions, we simply rubber stamp staff's budgets, and they're hiding things from us, which is all implied in this excerpt. You're going to hear it in just a moment. I find that to be offensive for our staff, offensive for the commissioners, and as I'm sure some of the public doesn't like this, but we have 5 Republicans on this board. I think we all consider ourselves to be very conservative in how we manage our budgets, and we ask a ton of questions. Let me just say, we go through a budget retreat in February. It's online, incredible presentations. We have budget hearings coming up where every agency, all 46 agencies, come back and talk about their budget requests, and it is detailed. It takes an entire week to go through those things, maybe a little bit longer, 8 days, whatever it is. But my point is, there is a huge amount of opportunity for commissioners and everyone to understand what's being done in Sedgwick County. So to argue that we don't know what's going on or that staff has been less than forthright is completely not truthful. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
May I add one thing? I also would like to point out that you all receive a lengthy monthly financial report. For quarterly financial reports, the ACFR, and about a 900-page budget every year. So we try to overwhelm you with data, not keep it from.
And the other thing is, they talked about that basically we're doing this in secret. And again, this is a state filing that he referenced. First of all, it's a public filing. Second of all, there's so much disclosure. If you really want to get into the weeds and understand what we're doing in Sedgwick County, you can get it all the way down to the very bottom. You can understand every penny in Sedgwick County. We're not hiding anything. Nicole, would you please play the next excerpt? And then please, Lindsay, stand by.
With elected officials at both the city and county level who've repeatedly said they couldn't afford to cut the mill levy. They had to exceed revenue neutral because they just couldn't. There's no way to cut. There's nowhere to cut. They can't afford it. If they're sitting on those kinds of reserves, I mean, that's just obscene.
Here's the thing, John. Budgets are prepared by staff. They are not prepared by council. They are not prepared by county commissioners. In fact, in a lot of cases, city council and county commissioners can't get the information if they want, because then you ask some more questions.
Right.
So, and this happens with school districts as well. The budget gets presented, and it's in the opinion of the people who don't want to cut back on anything they're doing. They couldn't do anything to cut the mill levy. There are opportunities, but you're not going to know all of them until you start digging in and asking a lot of tough questions. We did this research on the cash reserves because that buys you time. Obviously, if you spend it once, it's gone. But it buys you time to go in and do the hard research. And that's not going to happen unless you have city council, the majority. You need the majority of city council, the majority of county commissions and school boards to insist. They're going to have to vote, we're going to do this. You instruct the staff. In most cases, it's the other way around. The staff is leading the elected officials around.
All right, thank you. That I don't even know where to start with this one. It's just absolutely not true. I would say again, I think Sedgwick County is a great model of government. The county commissioners are driving the train. Staff is listening. They're responding. They are not creating budgets with a bunch of spending that we don't know about, that we simply are ignorant, and we rubber stamp it and they get away with stuff. That is completely not true. Now, listen, there may be some governments out there that do that type of thing. I couldn't speak to what other people do, but the intent of this entire podcast, I believe, is to encourage the legislature to be very conservative, to pass policies that, I use the word, starve the beast. The intent is there's a presumption that all local government is bloated, all local government is irresponsible, all local government is wasteful, and we've got to do something at the state level to rein them back in. I would argue that Sedgwick County, I can actually prove on Sedgwick County, I can prove. We have a long sheet that has data on there. I'd love to show it to anybody who's interested, to show how Sedgwick County over the last 15, 16 years has honed in on efficiencies. My biggest concern is how to sustain that level of efficiency. We have arguably, statistically, I can prove it, we've honed in on efficiencies that I'm extremely proud of. Our staff led us through that process. The commissioners worked with staff respectfully, and we did amazing things, and we should be recognized for that. When the state passes legislation to rein in bloated, wasteful government, you're impacting those that are doing a very good job, and these policies are going to have a drastic effect on the services we provide to our people. They're not going to like some of the consequences if we starve the beast in Sedgwick County, because there is not a lot of options here. The idea of exceeding revenue neutral, he keeps using that word. It's the revenue neutral rate. That's the tax levy that would deliver the same dollars as the previous budget cycle. So when you see a consumer price index or inflation in your community that goes up 3, 4, 5%, whatever it would be that year, and you live under some previous year's budget the tax levy of a previous year, there's only a couple of things you can do to make that happen. Either you've got way too much, as Dave Trobert says, you've got lots of money in the bank that you're doing deficit spending, you're drawing money out of the bank to float that government, or you've been overtaxing the people. And you decide to basically rein that back in. You're going to lower the tax levy because you've been overtaxing the people, and you were essentially doing what the legislature presumes that we're all doing. Or we can cut services. That's the only other option that's left. You cut what you provide that people demand and expect, or you find efficiencies and reduce waste and cut the mill levy because you can to still provide the services. But if you're very, very lean, as Sedgwick County is, we don't really have any options but to cut services. And I talked to John just last night, and I said, he said, "Well, you guys are going to exceed revenue neutral." I said, I think staff's recommending a certain level. I'm not sure commissioners are exactly there. We're discussing it, and I think we're going to see a conservative budget this year. He said, why don't you just cut it down to zero? Cut it below the revenue neutral. Let me say, last year, I don't know the numbers this year, but last year, our budget, I'm not completely happy with the budget last year. I think it was more than we probably should have approved personally. But we would have had to cut $17 million out of our property tax funds last year to stay under the revenue neutral rate. I had, 14 amendments to generally cut the budget last year. Most of them didn't go very far. I actually had a couple I didn't even offer because I could tell the reaction from the public was going to slay me over the recommendation or just even bring up the topic, because there's not a lot of appetite for people to see services cut. In fact, I said in my op-ed list last week, I think I can count on one hand in the last 10 years that someone's come before us in a budget hearing and said, please cut government, and let me tell you where to cut. That has only happened less than 5 times. Yet I can't count on 2 hands and 2 feet twice over how many times people have said, we want you to do more spending in this area. There's an appetite for more government spending. At the same time, people clamor for cuts in budget. That equation has to balance. So if I had passed all my amendments last year, we might have cut $1 million or a couple of $1 million last year. In 2015, we tried to cut a few $1 million. And we had to quit the cuts campaign, came against the county commission. It was on radio and TV, and it was on billboards, because we made recommendations like to cut the day reporting program, cut Cancel, $10,000 out of the Wichita Arts Commission, and on it went. I think, generally speaking, were fairly minor cuts. But the amount of money invested to attack the county commission far exceeded the value of those cuts, which is very interesting to me. I have been here, and I've been doing everything I can. We didn't take up item O today because there's a concern I have about I consider maybe potentially wasteful spending, and I wanted to make sure we don't do that. I want the commissioners to reconsider item O. We're going to have a staff meeting on that topic because I think, in my opinion, it looks wasteful to me. We have done, we're vigilant. We're examining the budget, trying to trim everything we possibly can. To think we're going to cut $17 million out of that budget in one budget cycle, I'm not going to say it's impossible, but you're going to have to cut things like significant cuts to public safety infrastructure. And I don't think people are going to tolerate those types of cuts. Nicole, would you please play the third one for me? And then we'll be done in just a moment. I apologize for the length of this.
It would make sense that the elected officials don't know about this, but then that's it's almost negligence on the part of staff that what are they getting out of it? It begs the question, are they corrupt, or are they just trying to protect? Who are they trying to protect by not disclosing this?
John, I don't think it's corruption, but I think it's human nature. When you work in government, there's no accountability. I mean, if bad things happen, if you overspend, nothing happens.
Right.
And,
yeah.
And so, it's the easiest money to spend is someone else's.
Yeah.
It is just human nature. They want to do what they want to do, and they, probably think they're doing the right thing. but nobody is asking any questions. The time isn't, think about when you have a chance to review a budget. It's out in public, and staff is really good at asking, if you ask a question, they can make you look silly, and that's all designed to keep you from asking the next question. I've seen it happen time and time and time again at, like, Overland Park. You go to the revenue neutral meeting. I've seen it so many times at Johnson County, at school boards. It's just they don't know what they don't know, and they don't want to be embarrassed, so they just rubber stamp the budgets.
When it comes to school budgets, we have a 259, I believe, is well over $1 billion budget. And the folks that represent the school board as elected officials, they don't get paid anything. They're truly volunteers. And so in that situation, I can see that their ability to dig into the budget deeply, like we do here, it just really isn't there. And I understand in those situations, the staff is generally building the budget and they present it, and there's not a lot of opportunity for the elected officials to really drive the budget process. That's not what happens here in Sedgwick County. I don't know what happens in Johnson County. The speaker of this clip lives in Johnson County. Johnson County, I understand, has like a is it 1.6 or 1.3? $1.6 billion budget. Our budget's $600 million. Theirs is over $1 billion more. They have, 120,000 people more than we have? So, I don't know what's going on in Johnson County, and I think, maybe Dave's comments are relevant to that jurisdiction. I don't want to speak to them because I don't know what I'm talking about when I speak about how they manage their budgets up there. But Sedgwick County is not fit this description. This idea that we are, led around by staff and we ask questions, but we don't ask enough questions, and we start asking questions, we feel embarrassed, and and it's silly. I ask my colleagues, do I ask too many questions or do I ask not enough questions? Listen, I spend almost all my time thinking about taxes and budget. That's all I do. I do it all day long. I do it. If I wake up in the middle of the night, I'm thinking about it. I'm driven by this topic. And the idea that I am and I'm ignorant and that staff is not responsive to my questions, it's just not true. We have great staff. Tom, thank you for your great work. Lindsay and the entire finance team, you guys do incredible work. The data we get from them and their support on ideas on how to trim government, they've been the very best. I am so impressed with their work. But this characterization about how we are not in control of the budget, we don't know what's going on, and we're simply wasteful, is just a wrong narrative. It's not fair, it's not right, and it's offensive. And I like to just say I apologize to you all for these types of comments being aired on the public. To my friends, John Whitmer and Dave Trobert, I still love you both, and I appreciate you both, what you're trying to do. But I would rather live in truth, and I would challenge everyone to dig in deeper. Don't live in the world of presumption. I think we all probably feel the federal government is very wasteful. I think there's a lot of data to back that up. But when you come down to local government and you actually have a good example of good government and good financing and all that, I think we should hopefully recognize the goodness of that rather than just assume that they're just bad like everybody else. And so with that, I want to say to my friends, I appreciate what they're trying to do, but I wish they would live in truth. And to our staff, I appreciate what you do. And finally, I'll just say this. I would like to invite Dave Trobert down here to Sedgwick County. I will host him for a day or two, sit down, and we'll look at the books together. I would love to have him come down here and go through this with me. Please, Dave Trobert, if you're listening, I invite you to Sedgwick County. I promise you, you're going to have a good time. We'll go through the books. We'll host you. We'll answer all the questions. I think when you walk away, you'll have a different opinion of Sedgwick County. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Commissioner Howell, appreciate that. And all the work from comms and finance on that. So other questions during other. Commissioner Meeitzner.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Commissioner Howell, thank you for all the work you've done. You do deep dives on many topics, and this one is one that I think it was worth explaining and exposing what we believe is the truth on what at least we do in Sedgwick County. And it's difficult. We can't speak on behalf of school districts and the 10 school districts that touch Sedgwick County and the 19 cities and the other cities. And so, but we can speak to what we do. And thank you, Lindsay, the CFO, and everybody in comms for the work on this. If I can switch topics real quick, I think under other, it's worth, had to even make some notes because I can't thank enough people, but we just finished the NCAA tournament in our community, and I just want to thank I can start by saying Wichita State, thank you, Brad Pittman, for being the host school. This thing has been a result of a couple of tournaments, and it started when 10-ish years ago when Wichita State went to the Final Four, and I got to thank Greg Marshall as well for making the NCAA tournament committee come to Wichita and tour the arena, the new arena, and that started the process, and then we all ran with it. So thank you, WSU, for being the host school, Brad Pittman and Coach Marshall for what you did originally. I also want to thank and recognize Visit Wichita and Susie Santo. Incredible coordination with her staff and her work on getting this done. A shout out to the city of Wichita, NASCAR Park. The Fan Fest was right there. The law enforcement that they provided was an incredibly safe environment for all the citizens. And I think they had 3 incidents, and 2 of them were maybe too much alcohol. And so the 3 incidents in 4 days is pretty good. So at the presence of law enforcement in the city of Wichita, thank you much. And then on a somewhat private side, surrounding the arena was the brick and mortar. So Crystal McDonald and Brian Brundage, thank you for what you did. The depot at Union Station, Jeff Knott, thank you for running that. That was another surrounding part. The arena south of Interest Management, Bruce Rowley and Solly and Jude's, thank you to you all for what you did to make this event great. And then on the outside, and then on the inside, the Interest Arena itself, it should not go unnoticed that the taxpayers approved this 2.5-year $1.50 1 cent sales tax that was projected to be 3 years, only took 2.5 years, and that was the money that the taxpayers believed in our community to do this, and you, the taxpayers, built this arena, and it's managed with AJ and his staff just incredibly well. It falls under the county owned asset because it was a countywide sales tax, but thank you, citizens of Sedgwick County, for supporting this vision and delivering things like this. Puts our county in the Interest Arena in the city on the U.S. map. And a lot of feedback said that there's a lot of cities that have these, but you have to travel around. I don't want to point out cities. I've been to a few of them. You just don't have that cohesiveness of a community right around Interest Arena like what I just said. And it's unique, and it's positive, and I think it continues to set the tone that we will get future things there. So including so thank you, Sedgwick County, and thank you. A shout out. EMS was on standby all over the place, outside, inside, every game, and probably forgot a few thank yous, but it's just worth recognizing officially that we as the county commission and Sedgwick County, we appreciate what role we played in helping pull this off, and the others took the lead. So that's my other.
Very good. Very good. Appreciate that. Commissioner BLUBAUGH.
Thank you, Chairman. I want to jump in here a little bit and piggyback on the law enforcement side of things. I mean, they were out here every morning, and anytime you were around the arena, we had our sheriff's deputies, WPD, SWAT was out there. They had their lights on. They had the barricades. I mean, I think they did everything to ensure we had a safe environment. Talked to Brian Goward with WPD's SWAT team yesterday, and he just kind of laughed off the 2 or 3 incidents because they were so small. He said, what I really recognize is the out-of-towners that came here, they're so respectful and thankful to the law enforcement. They knew what they were doing, trying to create a safe environment, and it really made the guys feel good, the guys and gals that, law enforcement, they really felt like they were treated by respect and a lot by our out-of-towners. So appreciate everybody that came here and visited. And
Good acknowledgement. Appreciate that, Commissioner. Okay, anything else under other? Okay, very good comments. Spent a little time under other, but it was probably necessary. Madam Clerk, next item.
Executive session.
Okay, we do have an executive session today. Commissioner Meitzner.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the Board of County Commissioners recess into executive session for 25 minutes until 11:30 for preliminary discussions related to the acquisition of real property for the purpose of discussing the potential purchase of land and buildings for use by county departments, and that the Board of County Commissioners return to this room from executive session at 11:30.
Okay. Motion. I'll have a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner BLUBAUGH.
Aye.
Commissioner Wise.
Aye.
Commissioner Howell.
Aye.
Commissioner Meitzner.
Aye.
Chairman Beatty.
Aye. Okay. Take a quick break from you guys, but we'll be back here at 11:30. from executive session. There was no binding action taken in our meeting. So is there any other actions that need to come or any other discussions need to happen from the bench? No other business? Okay, we are done. 11:30 on the dot. We stand adjourned. Have a good day.
Thank you.